the video because my video suddenly abruptly stopped. I'm not re-recording, so I can't be bothered. I don't have the time for this kind of crap. Yeah, my objective this year is to see this channel close down, because what I want to do is to bridge the gap between the real world and Tommy world. Yeah, Tommy Robinson lives in his own flipping world of his own ego, and one of his little, acolytes is Richard Inman. Great content on a breakfast show. But the problem is, and this is anyone who does understand the Bible, as I sort of half do, the Bible has to be taken in its entirety. Now, Richard Inman, I don't think you're a fascist. At least not yet. I've got my suspicions. Anybody who uses a culture or a race to basically advance a political cause, in my opinion, is a fascist. There is no such thing as a Christian nation. Now, I'll do you a deal. Or actually, no, I'll give you my word. If I come back onto your channel and make comments, I won't mention two things. I won't mention Ricky Doolan, because basically you can just look him up. He's as guilty as sin. Yeah? And number two, I won't question you on your Christian nationalism. Yeah? Or if I do say anything, then basically your moderators who realize it's me, and this actually proves you're a hypocrite. You sit there and you say, oh, I'm into free speech. I'm into free speech. No, you're not. Because the thing is, I don't dislike Bob. In fact, actually, you've one thing which Richard Inman has got in common with Bob is you both got a brain. In fact, I think Richard Inman's got a much better, he's more intelligent than Bob. Bob is also intelligent. He's autistic. I hope he gets past the pearly gates. I don't think he will, but I really hope he does, because he's preaching a false gospel. Now, the fact of the matter is there's no such thing as a Christian nation, and you, Richard Inman, should be man enough to realise this. You're clearly well-versed on the Northern Ireland issue, or the North of Ireland. I call it the North of Ireland because on balance, having Irish ancestry, I would support a united Ireland. However, I think that there are problems with the Belfast Agreement, and I think you know that, and your content was first class. But the fact is, you should know what the Unionists think. The Unionist fear always was being pushed into United Ireland, yeah? And their fear was that United Ireland would link them to Roman Catholicism. That's essentially the Unionist position. Now, one guy who I think is top-notch is Ian Paisley. Now, of course, he's dead, but I mean, he absolutely rocked. Now, as an MP, he would not discriminate between his Roman Catholic and his Presbyterian constituents, but he was steadfast against any form of popery. No popery. The problem with Christian nationalism is that it was born out of Roman Catholicism. And to give you the quick 5 minutes history of England, the fact is that after the collapse of the Roman Empire, the Roman Catholic Church took over the vacuum. The rest is history. Then we got William the Conqueror, who was actually backed by the Pope. He claimed to have the blessing of the Pope. He did have the blessing of the Pope. Then we had King John, then we had Magna Carta, then we had Henry VIII. Now, of course, Henry VIII, the popular perception is he wanted to get, his end away, basically. That's not true. The fact is that Henry VIII was getting, he could have any woman he wanted, they all had mistresses, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what's the Tudors? The Tudors is almost like a soft porn show, by the way. But the problem was he wanted to divorce, and of course the Catholics have a Catholic fiddle called annulment, so basically blah, 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 blah. So then we had the Anglican Church. Now, I know that there are people who watch my channel who think that Anglicans aren't Christians. I don't agree with that. I made an Anglican laugh in the summer of 25. I said it was a good idea at the time, which it was. Now, even Bob agrees that the Church of England needs disestablishing. So by definition, Bob agrees with me that there's no such thing as a Christian nation. We are a nation where we are built on Christian values, like the Wesley brothers, for instance. The Wesley brothers preach the gospel. So we've got the cart and the horse. The cart never comes before the horse. Luckily, the Wesleys pointed out the problems of the Anglican Church at the time. Now, of course, I know the Methodist Church is now a pale imitation of what Wesley did. The Anglican Church, it's headed by King Charles. We agree on a lot of things, Richard Inman. Stop the Christian nationalism. Now, okay, I'll agree to come on your channel and I won't mention the Christian nationalism, but I will debate you. But you won't do it because you know you'll lose, because you know you can't find any justification in the Bible. It's very, very simple, mate. Very simple. Now, you're clearly, actually not really that good a conservative either. Your analysis on Thatcherism, because of course you remember it, I remember it, you are older than me, sir. But you cannot claim to be against the left and then not realise what Mrs. Thatcher actually attempted to do. She wasn't perfect, for sure. She was not perfect. But what came before was a nightmare. Now, I've actually got an interesting situation because I'm clashing with a leftist, surprisingly enough. But I've got someone older than me is also left-wing, reads The Guardian. But he will actually talk to me because we can actually have a conversation and agree to differ. That's only because he's older than me. So I want to have a discussion with you. I want to bring somehow the various people together. And talking of Christian nations is completely counterproductive. Spreading Christianity and basically backing the fact that we should teach Christianity, absolutely. My position on schools. Should we teach Christianity in schools? Yeah, fair enough. The kind of shit they're learning at school at the moment. But then it begs the question, do you teach one or do you teach none? That's the US situation because they've banned prayer in school on basis of separation of church and state. And of course, that's not strictly true. Trump is having prayers at cabinet, fair enough. If you go to an AA meeting in America, they'll finish with the Lord's Prayer and they won't think anything of it. And I agree with that. I just am viciously opposed to situations like Oliver Cromwell, like Henry VIII, like everyone else who impose their religious view on the rest of the country. Now, if you go to Israel, it's a Jewish homeland. That's their rules. Now, of course, you'll then say, oh, yeah, but we're a Christian nation. It's not in the Bible. The only Bible alludes to the fact, it says in the Word of God, we are a holy nation. Singular. How do you explain that? Now, that's Bob's defense of Christian nationalism. I think it's in Peter, second book of Peter, we are a holy nation. They're referring to the spiritual nation. They're referring to the fact that if you are born again and saved by God's grace, then basically you are then part of God's holy nation. You're part of the Israeli nation. Now, then when you go to any Jewish viewers who are watching, I do believe that Jesus was the Messiah. But on the other hand, I fully support your right, A, to have a statehood, and B, to reject that view in my home country of Great Britain. Simple. It's not difficult. So talking of Christian nation is completely counterproductive. Britain, whether you like it or not, is now a multicultural country. It's completely multicultural. Take a trip on the Elizabeth line. You will soon see it. Yeah? The problem in Britain is we have Islamists. Now, Islamists, as happened in Iran, wanted to go round and impose, they did. Look at Iran. And please, I hope Iran is free by the end of the week. I'm going to see if I can find some Iranians where I am. And they'll be the biggest party going. Yeah? Because they know what it's like to live under a theocracy. No to theocracy. So I'm quite willing to talk to you, Richard, but I'm getting close to using the F word. That's not the four-letter F word. That's the same word I used on Nick Tenconi. That he's just a jumped-up little idiot wanting to impose his views on everybody else. What an idiot. He turned around and he said, only Christians can be in the cabinet. I actually think Ben Habib is potentially a good leader. He certainly seems more statesman-like than Nigel Farage, although Nigel Farage is a good politician. We have to build a coalition of the free. I mean, having lived, and this is what gets me about people on the far right, including Candid with Lubna, who seems to be well in with you, is that having lived in the Middle East, having lived in South Asia, because that sounds so politically correct, India, I know what the two things are. In fact, I can actually understand Muslims and Islamists, because there is a difference between the two, who say that life is now better in the Middle East than it was before Islam. Because, I mean, there are disadvantages of India. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like, it's complete chaos, yeah? But at least you're free. I felt more free in India than I did in Britain. I mean, I'm still in India mode. I'm still in, like, I can say what the hell I like, blah, 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 blah. And, of course, then, I've realised I'm not in India. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I once said to an Indian, I said, well, India is actually, they're not very PC. And, of course, the British Indian said, India is not PC at all. But we have to try and build bridges, realising that Britain has become multicultural. And the way to play these people, the way to play these leftists is to actually embrace multiculturalism and say, look, we stand with these guys, we stand with the Hindus, we stand with Muslims who are quite prepared to admit that they do not want to spread extremism in their mosque. We monitor the mosques and we make it quite easy for them. You all speak English. The sermons in the mosque have to be in English. That's not racist, by the way. Oh, we want it in our own... No, sorry, the language of Britain is English, yeah? I can cite you. And actually, I might need to do a reflection on Russia and the next video, actually, because I tell you what, it was quite funny, actually. I went to Russia. I came out unscathed, just about. So, Richard Inman, I want to talk to you. I was engaging very well in your channel until I mentioned Goldfinger. Okay, well, I'll shut up about Goldfinger. Or I'll just choose an alias and I'll just chat anyway, because I quite like your content, matey. Really do. I mean, I can pretend to be anybody if I want to be. I'll mask my IP, I'll make a new alias, and then I'll say, I'm really interested in becoming Christian. I mean, you're quite funny. What you're doing is actually quite good, but you should look at the responsibility you've got. One thing is to make sure you're actually preaching the true gospel, matey. Anyway, thanks for your attention.